Starting with a serious chat of what actually constitutes as rare these days. What can appear as too many games?
PS Too Many Games.
Hello guys, welcome to PS Too Many Games. Why is rare just thrown around willy-nilly these days for collectors and CEX? I don't think a lot of us use the term rare in the right context these days. Because there's different levels of rare. And sometimes, and including myself, we use the word extremely or rare way too willy-nilly. And after about a serious week of putting some thought into it, analysing what actually is rare and what actually claims to be rare but really isn't, you'd be surprised what you find in the PS2 collection that is supposedly rare but is actually quite easy to find, and games that are actually quite cheap but are impossible to find. We'll get into it in a second. Universally, it is agreed that the microphone is a major upgrade. Not only can you actually hear me vastly more clearly than usual, but the 60 frames per second is also seen to be quite an upgrade. So this microphone seems to be a unanimous success for everyone who has watched the channel. So thank you very much. We're all in agreement. Good call. So the phone pretty much should be fine for the filming side. And as long as I don't break the microphones, this should be quite good. Obviously, with the Boya, it has two microphones. So let's say I've got a friend who I'm going to bring to the gaming market on Monday. It's this Monday coming up, by the way. We'll be able to hear both at the same time. Don't be silly, Adam. No one comes to the gaming market with friends. Of course, I'm joking. I enjoy every gaming market with Dan. It's so much better when you've got someone to go with than going by yourself. Sometimes you feel like a Billy No Mates. Luckily, so far, there's not one gaming market I've been to solo. So they've all been quite enjoyable. So we are actually very close to getting 80% of all the games I need for the collection. But bear in mind, as I stated, there's a good 20% of the games we haven't got are just different versions of SingStar, different version of Buzzers, all the club football games I've still yet to get. So actually for games that are different to each other, we're well over 80%. So, and Dan's been telling me to do this for quite a while. He says I should start divulging into a second set sooner rather than later because, and I understand people might get a bit bored of me just buying games in. So when I get to roughly 90%, or I get to the point where it's just getting hard to find games and it's just a drag, I will divert to the second set. I don't know whether we're going to start Dreamcast, N64 or PS3 first. I don't know, but it's going to be one of those three sets. So we've got a small while, but that probably is going to start happening before the end of the year, depending on what I can find. Because there are some games that I can literally buy off CEX for CEX Roulette, and plus me, there are some coming next week. So there's going to be quite a lot of rouletting next week. And there are some games that have been put aside by my friends, like Rarities and Jonathan Neil Smith. So there's literally about 15 games already I haven't paid for but put aside for me. So we actually are finding games still at a rather good rate. But there will come the point where it will become just not so much incredibly hard and tedious to find some of these games and the expensive games I've got to save up for. So at that point, we will diverge to a second set or try and do the platinums. But if Dan has shown us anything on the other channel, trying to find all the platinums is incredibly hard. Anyway, let's not diverge from the actual topic of today. Today is going to be basically an opinion episode. No new games because they're on order and they've been put aside for me. They will be coming up next week. Plus the gaming market, I hope to find some new stuff. So this episode, no new games. I'm sorry. But this is basically a conversation I've been wanting to have for some time, last 2 to 3 months. Rarity. As I stated before, ever since the CX Rarity system turned up, I think the phrase of rare/rarity gets thrown out there far too easily. And there are certain games that people would class as rare, which really aren't. And there are certain games that people will say, you can find that any day of the week. No, you can't. You can't. I nearly swore. We're going to go through some examples of games that apparently are rare, but they're really not these days. and obviously games that I either own or don't own that are extremely hard to find. We'll go through like different types of rarity because there's different like stages of rarity where it gets classed as rare, and some of them are and some of them aren't. It's kind of mixed bag. For instance, the Tour de France Centurion Edition. I'll just take out the bags. I don't like keeping the bags on the shelf. It doesn't look great. Simply put, this game, even though it's only worth about £3.50 in a ham sandwich, it's actually shockingly rare to find. And when I found it in the Nottingham Gamer Market, that was actually the highlight of my day. I'm not even joking when I said that. And I would say this is vastly rarer than some of the really expensive games in CX right now, especially Rule of Rose. We'll get to Rule of Rose later. The fact they still call that an extremely rare game is just a lie these days. It really is. In all seriousness, what we would class as shovelware these days really is hard to find. Same for that Rugby League World Cup edition I got in the same game market in Nottingham. Shockingly hard to find, and yet it's only worth about £2.50 and another ham sandwich. Sorry, it's always been a joke in my family. It's like, I'll pay you £2.50 in a ham sandwich. What kind of ham? Honey roast? Just a running joke. But as you saw literally last week, Colosseum Road to Freedom is an incredibly rare game. This is literally the definition of rare. Only one that was in stock at CEX. Before that, there was none in stock. And it was in my local, bought it, paid £38, which is about mid-range for rarities. Genuine rare game. But this is not a CX rarity. Apparently this is not a CX rarity, which is just bollocks. Because some of the CX rarities are far more common to find than that. And we'll go through some in a second. Like Rule of Rose, obviously, I mentioned it earlier. This is the French edition, by the way. So, for those who are still on the outs on what happened in the last, 6 months. Before 6 months ago, this was actually an incredibly rare game. And not the rarest, but if you saw a copy, it would cost you between £300 to £400, maybe even £500. Then about 6 months ago, in an Italian warehouse, they found about 10,000 copies of it. Apparently, and this has been proven, apparently, simply put, these were all the games that were going to be shipped over to different countries from Italy, but never made it because the game was subsequently... Oh, good lord. No, screw it. The game was banned. I tried so hard with that one. Because of poor reports from the media of what apparently was in the game. If you want to learn about that, go on the Wikipedia. It's quite in-depth. Anyway, the media kind of got it slightly wrong on certain things, and yes, it wasn't the greatest game in the world, but getting banned, I don't know. Probably will still get banned to this day. So those games anyway sat in that warehouse in Italy, and they kind of got forgotten about. Until 6 months ago, where somehow out of nowhere they found all these games. I've been told by many people about 10,000 of them. And in the last 3 to 4 months, shockingly, people have bought copies of that. And obviously there's some fake copies going around anyway. And as of recording, there's over 100 copies of that game in CXs. Some stores have 2 to 3 of them. And the price has come down, but it's still shockingly high. I think it's still above £200 for Rule of Rose. When you got 100 copies of a game in stock, how can it be worth more than £200? Especially when it's actually reasonably easy to find. That's the kind of rarities that CX seems to ignore, if you understand what I'm coming from. Yes, of course it was a rare game, but now it's not a rare game. It's actually reasonably common. Go to any CX, you would find a copy of this anywhere over the country. You can order it online, roulette the hell out of it. So to call this an extremely rare game is just a false... It's just false. Oh, my brain. So, anyone's going to pay £200 or still the price these days, you really should hold off because this is going to keep coming down in price. There's no way it's going to go up in price. Not with how many copies they've got right now. Then you come to all the horror rare games in the rarity section of CEX. The truth is the majority of the horror games aren't super rare. They're not common, but they're not super rare. They're more uncommon. Especially the Silent Hill franchise. Silent Hill 2, 3 and 4, if you actually dig deep, you can find easily copies on eBay. CEX, they've got quite a few copies of them in stock. They're not hardcore rarity items. Forbidden Siren 1 and 2 are a little rarer, but Forbidden Siren 2's price still is shockingly high. And I don't think it's justified to this day. Clock Tower 3, also not that hard to find. And I will say, what's the one? Oh, good lord, I'm mentally dying. Resident Evil Survivor 2 actually is a little hard to find. That is actually reasonably rare. But what's the other horror franchise? Not Forbidden Siren 2. Oh, there's three of them. Project Zero. So Project Zero 1 is not horrifically hard to find. 2 and 3 are. They're genuine rarities. In fact, 3 I still do not own. I need Project Zero 3, so got to start searching for that. But the vast majority of horror games now, because they're quite collectibles, because horror is a strong genre, up there with RPGs, the two strongest genres in the PS2 for expensive items. Because they're so popular, they justify them for they call them rare games, but they're not horrifically rare. They really aren't. I mean, there's some serious rare games, and we'll go through them ones I own right now. One genre that is generally rare, and CX probably got it correct with the rarities, are the 2D shooters. Giga Wing Generations and Homura are generally shockingly rare games. I've only ever seen one copy of each of them, which I bought, Swap Shop, and this came from the Leeds Game Market. These are generally rare games. They are justified to be called rare. Certain genres... Are they worth that much, by the way? No. They shouldn't. I never should pay that much for them, but once again, rare, so I've got no choice sometimes. When you start going for a full collection, sometimes you've got to bite your lip and just go, I will happily play that. So, anyway, I'm trying to get across is, I would say half of the CX rarities aren't actually that rare to find. If it's a rarity, then firstly, probably it's not in stock very often, and when it comes in stock, it doesn't last long. That's a genuine rarity. Rarity games are games where, shockingly, they're incredibly hard to find. But the amount of rarities in CEX where they're constantly in stock, if it's constantly in stock and I can order it online, it's not that fucking rare. And if you look at the list of PS2 normal games which are never in stock, they should be classed as rarities. Maybe I'm just being a bit stubborn in my analysis of this idiom, but it makes no fucking sense. And I'm sorry I'm dropping F-bombs, but I'm trying to get across my thoughts on the matter. On a personal level, what actually are, in my opinion, my rarest games? Games that not so much the most expensive I own, but are incredibly hard to find, and I'm elated to have them. Probably not standalone games. Special editions probably are so much harder to find than normal games. I mean, I mentioned Giga Wing and Homura were incredibly hard to find, and they are some of the rarest games I own. But it's Baroque, very hard game to find. 10,000 Bullets, these are all games I own, by the way. Incredibly hard game to find. They are some of the rarest games. But probably the most rarest game I own that is not a special edition, Wild Arms 5. I would say Wild Arms 5 is probably the most rare, the hardest CX rarity to find so far was Wild Arms 5. Game of rarities found it for me, which is elated. That is incredibly hard to find. And it's about £200 now, I think, at CX, it's just short about that, so that's about right. But as RPGs go, this is one of the hardest ones. So I was elated to be basically helped out by getting rarities on that one. If it comes to special editions, the rarest special edition I own, and one of my favourites by far, is the Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 3 Collector's Edition. This is very rare. Not totally expensive. I think you still pay less than £100 at CEX, but they never have these in stock. And the fact I got one in such reasonably good condition still makes my day every time I look at it. It's not my favourite special edition. I think my favourite special edition is the Ultimate Spider-Man one. Just look at that. Yeah. Still to this day, by the way, I paid £35 for this. You need to pay a lot more for that now. It's not as super rare to find. You'll find one of these every so often, but in such good condition, apart from the top right, which I will solve, I'll still take it though. Basically, my point I'm trying to get across, and I'm guilty of this, a lot of my fellow YouTubers are guilty of this, and CX are completely guilty of this. The definition of rare is an item that is incredibly hard to find. A lot of stuff that myself and some other YouTubers call rare aren't as rare as we say it is. And there are some items, generally speaking, that are actually incredibly rare, which I've not, basically I've undersold in the past. Like some of the shovelware. But obviously because people see value in things. Anything that's very expensive, they're going to say, well, that's got to be rare, it's expensive. That's not the way it works in collecting, trust me. And some of the cheaper games that I've found are actually shockingly rare, but I didn't say it because no one's going to take that seriously. Yeah. Oh, good lord. I will say one thing. Any game worth over £100 actually generally usually are rare games. It's that kind of gap between... It's the games that are like worth between £50 and £100. There's quite a few of them where you look at it and go, actually, I can probably find that quite easily if I looked hard enough. It's a needle... It's a interesting... How can I put this? It's hard to get my thoughts across in some of the games I've bought, which I thought I shouldn't be paying this. Quite honestly, there's quite a few expensive games where it's like, this shouldn't be this expensive, and they're just price fluctuating just to get more money out of us. Tough times. I just thought I'd get those opinions off my chest because I want to say it for quite a while. Anyway, long story short, some games, even though they are actually quite expensive, aren't actually super rare, and some of the rare stuff is super cheap, which I still can't find, by the way. Future episodes coming up. So I've ordered 5 rarities. I wish. I've ordered 5 games from CEX Online. We're now getting to that point where it's like I need to start buying games online from CEX or eBay to start finding, basically, because some of these games I'm never going to find in public, sadly, and CEX's local ones have got nothing I need, so it's no point in going there. Even though I really want to find things in person, I'm now got that point with the collection where it's like I've got to start ordering a lot of stuff in, which is going to be great for like future episodes, but that's the way it is when you go for a full collection. When you start getting to the nitty-gritty, sacrifices have to be made. This is why hopefully Monday's Norwich Gaming Market, hopefully I'll find stuff I actually need. I really do hope, because last time there's only 2 games I needed, and they were actually the 2 rarest games in the building. I got lucky that day. I doubt I'm going to get lucky twice in a row at the same market. It's been barely a month since, so we'll see what turns up. Anyway, thank you for watching. Please comment, like, subscribe. Very close to going back to 2 episodes a week now. We're getting back in the groove here at the channel. Once I've got a couple of things in my life sorted out and I have more time to do so, then we will get back into 2 episodes a week. But at the moment, it's just real life takes precedence. I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry about that. Anyway, morale's pretty back to where it was before, so future sprite for the channel. And to summarise with the second collection, probably won't be seeing me start collecting for anything until between 950 and 2000, when I really start to struggle to find stuff. Anyway, thank you for watching, guys. Have a good day. I'll speak to you later. Bye.